Congrats to every single one of you who took the long-term futures on Mike Budenholzer and James Jones, keeping their jobs longer than Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. Psychos and sickos unite for one of the final regular season times here on the PHNX Suns pregame show, brought to you by Gila River Resorts and Casinos. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. I'm Eric. That's Steven. He's back, baby. And Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen. We've got Gerald down at PHNX Arena getting ready for Suns Warriors. Jimmy Butler had a love affair with the Suns, but he got married right afterwards, signed a long-term deal with the Warriors. And Steven, tonight's game, we're going to get into it. The odds that we feel like the Suns have to win the game, what it means for their playoff/play-in standings if they lose. But you've been off of a couple of shows. You've been able to take in these games just from a not media perspective, but just separated from this instant reaction that we live in here on PHNX Suns. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling about how the Suns have looked over the last couple of games?
Yikes.
Amen.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. Defense, anybody, anyone?
No.
Maybe just a
None.
little bit?
Zero.
Like just a smidge?
Don't think so.
A remnant? Well, ain't nothing else to talk about. I mentioned
All right,
it.
that was PHNX Suns pregame show.
Been talking about it since they started to turn a corner, since they were trying to find a way to turn the corner. Everything's going to be contingent upon if they can defend to a league average level, which is not asking for a lot. If you can't even get there, then there's nothing much to talk about as far as this season goes. When they did that, we saw what the record was, multiple win streaks. And when they haven't since those win streaks ended, we've also seen what's happened. And that's independent of whether Durant's in the lineup or not. Mm-hmm. If they're not playing defense, they're not going to win, period.
Yeah, and obviously missing Durant has been a big problem for them, but they've gotten to this point where they can't afford to lose any games, literally, because let's go ahead and take a look at the push me off a cliff, a.k.a. the push for the play-in, presented by All-Pro Shade Concepts. What a surprise. The Suns still black and white on the outside looking in. They're currently 2.5 games behind the Mavericks, 3.5 games behind the Kings. So let me break this down for you, Steven, as far as what tonight's game means for the Suns' odds. Well, currently they have a 4% chance of making the play-in, so very low. A loss tonight would secure the Kings with a play-in berth, and the Suns would have to then go undefeated over their final 3 games. OKC on the second night of a back-to-back, San Antonio, and then Sacramento, right? If they lose tonight. And Dallas would then have to go 0-3 along with Phoenix's 3-0. So a loss tonight effectively means that you have to win out and Dallas has to lose out just to sneak into the 10th seed. Steven, is this a must-win?
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
We finally made it.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
It's definitely that the rest of the way for this team.
Meatloaf says Suns in 4%. That's what I said. Yikes. So when it comes to playing the Warriors tonight, let's take a look at our injury report. Because Kevin Durant is still on there. Now, Nick Richards was an addition to it, but he is available with right elbow soreness. Gary Payton II, a.k.a. the Mitten, is out for Golden State. But Steven, effectively a fully healthy Golden State team minus a small piece, going up against the Suns minus their best piece. Do you feel like there's any chance the Suns can pull off a win tonight?
Yeah, there is a chance because there's always the opportunity for Devin Booker to be the best player on the court. It's just a matter of, is it going to be the show being led by Devin Booker featuring only Devin Booker? Or is it going to be him featuring the blue-collar boys and everybody in that in-between portion of the roster? Is everybody going to chip in the ways that their individual impact can have that impact on the game? Or is it just going to be what we saw the last 3 games now? It's just Devin Booker scoring, scoring, and scoring, but not having an impact in terms of the grand scheme of things over the course of the game.
Yeah, you only have a chance if Devin Booker goes straight up Armani mode tonight. And we'll talk more about specifics of this game. But Kaylee in the chat says, KD's still on the injury report? OMG. So yes, Kevin Durant, even though he was initially just ruled out for that 3-game road trip, the Suns are now back home. He's out tonight. This is Mike Budenholzer on Kevin Durant's progress as with his left ankle sprain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, he didn't do a lot more than that. He got some shots up today, moved a tiny bit, so making progress, but, nothing more than just shooting right now.
Have you seen enough progress from him to believe he has a chance to play tomorrow?
At this stage, we're not saying anything about tomorrow. Obviously, he's important to us, but, I think he basically just shot today, so there would have to be a big leap between now and tomorrow.
It's well known what the record is without KD. It's well known the back-to-back that they're up against with the Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder. 2 teams with top 3 records since the Jimmy Butler trade in the league. Needless to say, you're going to need his services in at least one since he's not playing tonight.
Oh, especially if you lose tonight, you have to go 3-0. There's no chance that you go 3-0, even with 2 of those games against subpar opponents, if there is such thing against the Phoenix Suns. You still need Kevin Durant in order to pull off that, considering the fact that you were barely able to string together 4 straight wins with Kevin Durant in the lineup and everything going right for you. So obviously, we just heard from Mike Budenholzer, an interesting day for NBA head coaches, Steven. We'll dive into Michael Malone getting fired and what that might mean for his future and maybe ending up here in Phoenix in our post-game show. But Grayson Allen was asked at Shoot Around earlier today to evaluate Coach Bud, and he was also asked about how quickly the NBA moves on from head coaches like Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah, all I'm saying is I think it's easy to judge coaches based off of the win-loss record of the team, but I think there's a lot more than that, and we're all obviously disappointed in what our record is. But if you're going to ask me if coach has done a good job or assessing what he's done, like from the locker room to film sessions to coaching outside, that's all I'm saying is there's a lot more that goes into it than just wins and losses. Like, you can do a bad job and win a lot of games, you can do a good job and lose a lot of games, you know what I mean? So there's a lot more that goes into it than just our record.
Is it jarring to kind of see how quickly coaches can let go? I don't know if you saw the Mike Malone just got fired in Denver.
Yeah, I just saw that. It's shocking. I mean, we're obviously all of us are on the outside looking in, but his last 2, Taylor Jenkins and Mike Malone, especially the state of the season, seem shocking and out of nowhere. And they seem like guys who have done a great job, which is kind of what I mean. Like, you would look at those teams and, think that their coaches have done a good job with them, but it's kind of crazy how fast this league moves on from people now.
It is crazy how fast the NBA moves on, and we'll have more on that in our post-game show. But as far as evaluating Bud, saying a coach can do a good job and the team can lose games, a coach can do a bad job and the team can win games, while I respect that answer, Steven, to me, that's just a lot of, hey, I'm not going to give you an answer. And if you're not going to give me an answer, that's going to lead me to infer other things.
I hear you on that, especially considering the context that Grayson is speaking from, that he's directly involved in. But I will say generally, I think that the mindset of, oh, this team has 50-plus wins or 60-plus wins, they have a great coach. And, oh, this team that has 25 or less wins does not have a good coach. I think that mindset has to be shifted because Billy Donovan, for example, much scrutinized with the Chicago Bulls. You saw what their record was before the All-Star break, and now all of a sudden their team that's firmly in the play-in that can get as high as the 6th, 7th seed, which seemed impossible. So now all of a sudden, is he just a good coach because he was a bad coach early this season? Or has he been a solid coach all along and the team is finally figuring things out according to his principles and they're hitting their stride at the right time? Like that's the type of lens you have to look at these things through, because it can't just be a switch flipped and now someone just went from bad to good. there's a lot of components to it, which Grayson kind of spoke to.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any just outright terrible coaches in the NBA on the NBA level, because if you drop them in lower situations, they'd run circles around other coaches. But comparatively, and I think with Bud, it's really tough because of just how high the expectations were and how blatant it feels like some of the mistakes are. But behind the scenes, we don't know what everything is like. But Grayson Allen was also asked about why the Suns season has gone the way it has. I'm really hoping he can enlighten me because, God, I have no clue.
Why do you think the season's going the way it has? Why do you think the season's going the way it has?
There's a million reasons, a lot of reasons why. It's not. It's tough to just pinpoint one thing. Like you can say injuries early, lack of continuity early. You could say our failure to win games on the road. Like we have a pretty good home record and a terrible road record. We can talk about the defense. We can talk about all the different lineups we've tried to run and finding different things. There's a lot, and at a certain point when you can come up with that many reasons, they just become excuses. And the guys here and in the locker room, we just needed to be better up to this point and figure out better ways to win.
Out of all the players, Steven, that we've been hearing speak post-game, I don't know if there's one that I can see taking this situation harder than Grayson Allen.
Why do you say that?
His body language feels to have changed. If you remember his comments after a game, I think a week or so ago, were very much like, I don't know if we have that fight in us. So we'll see. And that's just not what we saw from him over his last now almost 2 years here in Phoenix. And I think that he's the type of person that when you start saying a million reasons and he's listing it all off, like it feels like he's taking it pretty hard.
I can see that. I also see Grayson, or have always perceived Grayson to be a straight shooter, no pun intended.
For sure.
And I think that he's just very much in tune with the moment, knowing that they're underwhelming. He's been underwhelming by his personal standards this season. And it's just kind of a culmination of things leading to him exuding the body language that he has. The belief, I don't feel, is there because the proof of concept has gotten further and further and further and further away, you know?
I mean, yeah, it's hard to believe in this team from an outside perspective. It's got to be even harder if you're putting in the work on a daily basis like these professional athletes do, even teams that suck, man. You go into a practice, you go into individual workouts, and there are players putting in 110% of what they have into their craft, into their profession. And when that doesn't lead to results, whether it's basketball or anything, any place that we've all worked in our lives, whether you're in school and you studied really hard for a test and you put the hours in and then you take the test and you suck. You fail. You're like, okay, well then what the hell was all that work for, right? Like I did the whole process, right? But the result wasn't there. And that's what I feel like we've started to see compound and compound and compound with this Phoenix Suns team full of vets. Guys who have been in the league, who expected to win. This isn't like, hey, we thought we had a chance this season, but we're young. We'll just go ahead and get them next year. We were a little disappointing. This is, no, everybody who was on this roster expected one thing, and we're getting the opposite. And it's tough, Steven, to be sitting here playing the Warriors tonight and not think, what if the Suns were able to pull off a Jimmy Butler trade? Would you and I be sitting here having a different type of conversation right now?
I mean, to answer that question in short, I do think we would be seeing something a little different. Might only be 2 games, but that 2 games is the difference between the 10 seed and on the outside looking in of the party that's the play-in games or play-in tournament. So that's true, but also I don't think that Jimmy's strengths and his personality would have been enough to just completely erase all that pre-existed him coming into the Suns context, which I tried to speak to as much as I possibly could with all of the trade rumors. He's great, but he's not going to shift everything because that's nearly impossible for anybody.
And I get that, but and I did a mini pod with Espo, and he said the same thing where it's like, I don't feel like Jimmy would have solved what we thought he was going to solve it. And I've always acknowledged, I know you've always acknowledged, and all the fans, it's very blatantly obvious, there's more than just one problem with this team. And Jimmy Butler would solve a couple of those problems, but not all of them. No one player solves all of them unless you're prime LeBron James. Right? Like players just don't do that, especially like the great players who we hold in such high regard. They still don't just come in and change everything and take all your flaws away. Yeah. That being said, he would have made this team, I think, significantly better now significantly better than 35 and 43 with 4 games left in the season, would be probably still around 500. But you would have at least the conversation now to talk yourself into, oh, well, Jimmy led the Heat through the play-in and then to the finals, right? Like, could this team do something similar? Instead, we're sitting here going, hey, if they don't go undefeated over the rest of the season, they're out of the play-in. And that margin means something to me personally as a fan.
Yeah. I think that, and I'm just kind of rehashing the same conversation with Jimmy in the Suns context, but the biggest thing for me was that his strengths all align with the Suns' direct weaknesses. As far as him being a defensive-minded player that has his most impact on that end, and the Suns being a lackluster defensive team that lacked activity, him being able to bring that naturally gives them potentially more possessions. And just some of the little quirky things that his dynamic brings to a game would have all been kind of like a shot for the Suns. But I just don't know if it would have been enough to trump everything that preceded it.
Yeah, I don't think it would either. Now, this is Steve Kerr speaking before the game today on how Jimmy Butler's been fitting in Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, I think until you actually coach a guy, you don't really know his game. And Jimmy is also subtly brilliant. You know, he's not obviously brilliant. And so once I had him in the first few games, I got it. I figured it out. You know, it's like, okay, he just makes the right play over and over and over, and he's so fundamentally sound, and he never makes a mistake, and he's fantastic defensively, and he's a competitor, and he's smart, and he's tough, and you start seeing how much better he's making everybody else, and how much sense every possession makes, and in some ways it has restored my faith in fundamentals. You know, like watching Jimmy play, it's I have Tex Winter's voice in my head, you know, from my days with the Bulls, like why footwork is so important, why decision making. He's an old school player, and he has instantly made us better because of those old school habits.
Jimmy Butler is a blue-collar boy personified of the superstar realm, and those players have such an immense value, especially come this time of season where teams are peaking or getting close to their peak, and it's going to take efforts that don't always show up on the box score for a team to get over and do things in a winning fashion time and time again. You have somebody like Jimmy that you can rely on to go in addition to everything that is Draymond Green, who is also a superstar blue-collar boy. That's the makings of a team that has an opportunity to win against anybody, because Steph's going to do what he does. If it's coming with elite defense around him and elite decision makers, elite thinkers on the other end, they're set up for success.
There are 4 teams right now in the Western Conference that are all tied 46 and 32 on the season, which is crazy. Golden State, one of those teams in the 6th seed. Out of those 4 teams, Memphis, Minnesota, LA, the Clippers, and Golden State. I think Golden State's definitely the most dangerous, I feel like, in a playoff setting. And then the Denver Nuggets are only a half game above them at the 4 seed. And I still think Golden State would have a chance against anybody in the Western Conference, especially those teams that they're close to. Tonight will maybe be a display as to why, because teams smell blood with the Phoenix Suns and they take advantage, which leads me to the first super chat that we have in our pregame show. Make sure that y'all hit that like button, drop super chat if you want your chat read on screen. Michael with a $1.99 super chat says, Suns not gonna win with KD out, so thank me later. Thon also says, how much are we losing by tonight? Well, I think those are great segues, Steven, into our score predictions for Suns Warriors with 4 games remaining in the regular season. Not a lot of confidence from anybody, but the most confidence from Gerald, saying Warriors by 10, then your Warriors by 15. I'm Warriors by 20. Espo says Warriors by 54. Seems like a blowout's on the horizon, Steven.
I think this is probably the first time all season where we've all picked double-digit losses for the Suns.
Probably.
Yeah, that says a lot in and of itself.
Yeah, well, let's see what our friends over at Bet365 have as far as the line goes for tonight's game. Have the Suns plus 9.5 at home, mind you, on the spread, plus 350 on the money line. The Warriors minus 9.5 on that spread, minus 450 on the money line. Steven, in order to win this game, in order to cover for this game, let's get to your keys for what the Suns must do in order to not be embarrassed tonight.
First of which is take care of the ball. The Golden State Warriors have been one of the most disruptive defenses in the league since they've added Jimmy Butler to their team context. It's not only Jimmy, but Jimmy allows for other players to be more aggressive because he can be such a versatile piece on the defensive end. So taking care of the basketball first and foremost, take away transition and points off turnovers from them. You start to chip away at those margins. You give yourself a chance at least. Number 2, control the pace. And they think about, from controlling the pace perspective, not getting or conceding the Warriors to the free throw line. Jimmy Butler, in addition to his defense, has also made the Golden State Warriors one of the best teams at free throws, getting attempts at the line, and just putting teams in a bonus, not unlike Chris Paul did when he was with the Suns. He's not Giannis, but he's good at baiting fouls, and that is very much an art form, a skill. You keep them off the line, they get 20 points a game from the free throw line with Jimmy Butler. That's a lot of points. Sometimes points that the Suns don't even get in a quarter. So take that portion away from their scoring diet. Again, another margin that you can give yourself a chance via. And then the last big one, you need your blue-collar efforts, because if they're just playing free-flowing fashion offense, running through all of their fancy sets and actions in the half court, and it's death by 1,000 cuts and Steph Curry threes, it's going to be that 54-point game that Espo kind of predicted a minute ago.
Yeah, well, here's also something the Suns are going to have to overcome tonight. According to a lot of people who are in the building, it's feeling like a home game for the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. Lots of the blue and gold and Curry jerseys. If that doesn't send a message to this front office, to this ownership group, that what's going on is not okay, I don't know what will. But we're also winding down, as far as the regular season goes, Steven, on our betting competition. So it's time for our pregame picks presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHNX365 when you sign up and find out why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 plus and physically located in AZ. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT-STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. Do we have the standings? Can I take a look at the standings? I know we don't always check in on those. I don't want to seem like I have a lot of hubris, even though, you know, I am apparently the best bettor on this program. But I'm currently up $299 on the season. Steven, close second place for you. Negative $305.08. Espo, minus 388. So we're getting down to it. How are you making up your $600 difference tonight?
Well, let's find out. Start with the Dubs getting to 120. They're averaging 117 and some change with Jimmy Butler in the lineup for them. And I think that's something that the Suns have been conceding a whole lot more of over the last 2 weeks of games. So naturally, there's a marriage there. The Suns not scoring 110 points. They've struggled to do so, especially whenever Kevin Durant hasn't been in the lineup. Devin Booker's been going crazy, 29.5 points, I feel like is a layup. Turnovers are also a layup for him because I mentioned the Warriors and their defensive activity. Stephen Curry over 25.5 points. He just had that 50-something point game a couple of games ago. He didn't have the prettiest performance against the Rockets, but he loves playing the Suns and he loves playing in Phoenix. Suns also don't play defense, so there's
That's the big part of the equation.
That's the big part. I have Jimmy Butler under 5.5 assists. He's averaging 6. As a Warrior, I don't think he gets there tonight. And then the last one, Bradley Beal. This is a leap, I know. Over 12.5 points in this one.
Yeah, your Bradley Beal bet confused Gerald and I on the last game, especially coming off of that 1-point performance. We'll see what Bradley Beal can do tonight.
Deficit, desperate times call for desperate measures.
I would say that these are desperate times in more ways than one. Speaking
I
of,
heard you, Brent.
What did Brent say? That's asking a lot from Brad Beal, Steven. Speaking of, I want to take a look at the starting 5 for tonight. Same starting 5 as last game, Steven. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, and Nick Richards. How do you feel about that starting 5?
I don't feel too good about it.
Yeah,
and it's
either.
Primarily because the Warriors starting lineup, and they've been starting Draymond at the 5. They've been cross-matching. They could care less about probably 89% of the starting centers. They just switch it. They don't have any role effect. So what other impact can your center have if they're not rolling and grabbing offensive rebounds? Nick Richards, make them think about you. If you don't do that, the Suns will lose this game by 20.
Would you have started Oso in this game?
Absolutely.
Especially considering that Oso's
Yes.
first ever start against an NBA team was against this Golden State team, and he had a very good game.
I would have started Oso for the simple fact that he can do things that have nothing to do with him having roll gravity. Short roll playmaking, they're going to double team Devin Booker, especially without KD on the court. Can your centers bring something else past just rebounding the basketball and rolling?
How do you feel about Beal starting over Gillespie?
I mean, the writing
What a
was on
sentence, by the way. What a sentence, huh? Fuck me, man. God damn it, I hate this team.
The writing was on the wall.
Team.
The writing was on the wall. You knew it was going to happen, if not in a literal sense in terms of swapping. The minutes would suggest that, but I'm not surprised by it. I'll say that.
I'm so sick of this team. Let's take a look at Espo's bet for tonight. He's got Jimmy Butler, 30-plus points. Devin Booker, 40-plus points at a plus 5,000. That would be quite the game. I'm also putting my money on Jimmy Butler to do well, but not with just points. I got Jimmy Butler double-double. Thinking with rebounds, especially because Golden State's going small with Draymond at the 5. They're going to need Butler to crash the boards. I can still see it with assists, though, because this Warriors team loves to run off the screens, loves to shoot movement threes, obviously Steph Curry being the massive head of that snake, but it's going to lead to some, I think, extremely easy assists for not just Draymond, but Jimmy Butler and basically anybody who's out there on the court. I want to talk a little bit about pods. Amelia says, so we can go back to cussing? Only on pregame shows, Amelia. If we were allowed to cuss on postgame shows, they'd be a lot different, at least from me right now. Nick Richards is starting, not Plumlee. Boom, shakalaka. But Brandon Podemski has had a very good post-All-Star break run. What kind of problems could he pose to a desperate Suns team?
He's a quick decision maker. So whoever it is that's guarding him, whether it's dribble, pass, or shoot, he's making that decision quick, and he's not hesitating. He's also being infused with confidence by the veterans around him. That all makes for a young player that's still kind of finding his way to just be that much more effective because they're not looking over their shoulders. They're not scared to take more risks. And when, as a younger player, especially if you're allowed to come into the game and just play your game and not have to think too much, you could just hoop. That puts you in the perfect position, and he's the type of player that plays well off of the attention that their best players garner, but he can also go off script and kind of create some offense for himself and for them as well, and he fits like a glove for their starting unit, and that's why he's been in that spot.
Who's the biggest X factor the Suns need to step up tonight to win?
Nick Richards. You have to be a big in this game. Make your presence felt. That B&E energy has not been there for a while. They needed it to be loud tonight in the way that it was in his first 2 games with the Suns.
Any final thoughts before we wrap things up here on another pregame show?
Yeah, watch for, I'll continue to say it, for everybody that wants to see Devin Booker without another true superstar for whatever reason that is, watch for how teams are guarding the other players on the Suns. They knocked down 4 threes against the Knicks. How many times did you see an urgent closeout to anybody that wasn't named Devin Booker or Grayson Allen in that game?
Book got quintuple teamed,
and
right?
to that point, you need players that garner the respect of the opposing defense to open up opportunities for Devin Booker to score and score efficiently or effectively. You don't do that, you're going to see examples like this freeze frame that we're looking at right here.
Yeah, I forgot to pull that up last post game. I was just so angry. That's so crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, people are begging for this, and Book still has been able to produce. Lonnie says Book 50-piece tonight. Hello says Beal needs to be the X factor, and I agree with Hello. I don't think there's any way the Suns are winning this game unless, of course, Devin Booker goes back to being Armani mode, scores 40 points, whatever it's going to take from him. But you need Bradley Beal to have impactful points because he did score actually a decent amount in the second half of last game, but none of them felt like they had any impact whatsoever. We need some impactful scoring from Bradley Beal, whether that comes in the form of 8 to 10 timely points, whether that comes into 22 points spread out throughout the game, big timely bucket making at the end in a clutch time situation. Those are the only ways, in my opinion, that the Suns are able to pull off a win tonight. Yes, Sean, SPG back in the studio. And of course, we'll be back for our post-game show. We'll be talking about Suns Warriors. We'll also be talking about Michael Malone, the future of another Mike, the one that's named Budenholzer here in Phoenix. And of course, what front office ramifications this might have across the NBA. Make sure you hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to PHNX Sports. I do have one housekeeping note for everybody, and we'll reiterate this in post-game. Our Sunday watch party at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, unfortunately, has been canceled due to a couple of reasons. We appreciate those of you who were already planning on going. However, that event will no longer be taking place. We are hoping to do something else maybe in the future, but we will keep everybody tuned in on that. However, this Sunday's watch party at Gila River Resorts and Casinos at Wild Horse Pass for the final game of the season has been canceled. But we appreciate all of you still being here. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. We do more than just Suns coverage around here. PHNX Cardinals had a 20-minute long conversation with Kyler Murray. There's a D-backs post game tonight. Of course, ASU and U of A in full swing in spring football practice, and of course, transfer portal season and the Mercury. They are coming up, Steven. That season is starting soon for you psychos and sickos who want to distract yourself from whatever the hell is going on here. We have all of that right here on PHNX Sports. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll be back for our post-game show.
Appreciate y'all.